These are in listen-only mode.
Alright, we've almost reached the end here. All that's left is 6.5 and 6.6. Here it says, describe how the following graph has shifted compared to the graph of y equals x squared. Now if you go into your graphing calculator and go to the y equals button, and then type in x squared and hit graph, you definitely need to memorize what that looks like. That is a quadratic. The highest exponent is 2, and you're going to have a parabola. Whenever you graph a quadratic, you always get a parabola. This is called the parent function because this is as basic and simple as it gets. Just plain old x squared. It's a parabola. You'll notice the vertex is at 0, 0, and that's it. Now, if you subtract a 2 and add a 4 to the x squared, that's going to change what this looks like. So you can use a calculator to, again, type this in and graph it, and then you can compare and see how it shifted. The rule is this. When you have x squared, you get a parabola. If you add or subtract something to the x, that's called the h value. It represents horizontal shift. And the pattern we notice in this section is that if you add an h value, if you add inside parentheses, that moves the graph to the left. If you have a subtraction and then some number here, so these are things that affect the x, and the x-axis goes left to right. This is how you move graphs left or right. So if you subtract from x, it shifts right. Adding is left. Notice that's the opposite of what you might have guessed. And it's because in the form it's a minus h, and this negative sign makes h do the opposite of what you would think. Now the k value is normal. It does exactly what you would think. Adding something at the end affects the y value, and the y-axis goes up or down. So adding something at the end, if you add a k value, that moves the graph up. And if you subtract a k, subtracting moves the graph down. So just by looking at this question, since it's minus 2, that affects the x, so that's either left or right. Subtracting moves it to the right, too. If you graphed it in your calculator, you should have noticed that the graph shifted over right 2 places. Adding a 4 at the end affects the y value. It's going to be up or down, and adding is up, just like you would think. So this graph should also have moved up 4 places. You would select this answer. Again, in your calculator, you should have noticed the parabola moved 2 to the right, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 up. So it would look like this. And you can compare and say, oh yes, it moved right and up. Let's do that again. X squared makes a parabola. If you add 3, that's going to change the original graph. If this is the original, adding 3 to the x is going to make this shift left, right, up, or down. This is the h. When you do something inside parentheses to the x, that's either left or right. And this is the one that does the opposite of what you would think. Adding 3 is going to shift this left 3 places. So if you graph it in your calculator, you should notice the parabola moving 3 to the left. And that's what you would choose. So again, the h, it does the opposite of what you would think. Adding is left, subtracting is right. If there was something at the end of this equation, that's what moves the graph up or down. But again, if you put this into the y equals and hit graph, you can look at the picture to help. 6.6, find the vertex. The definition of a vertex is that it is the maximum or minimum point. Whenever you have a parabola, the vertex is the minimum point. It's the middle. Or if you have a parabola open down, it would be the maximum point. But the vertex is a point, and therefore the answer is written as an ordered pair. It's a point. Step 1 is use the vertex formula to find the x value. It's almost the same as the quadratic formula minus all the complicated parts. The vertex formula is just negative b divided by 2a. So just like the quadratic formula, the a is the number in front of the x squared. B is the number in front of the x. We don't need c here because there's no c in the vertex formula. So negative b divided by 2a. Be very careful with all the negative signs. So negative b will make this negative 6 divided by another negative 6, which is positive 1. Now that's only half of your answer. That's only the x value. We still need to find y. The last step is, now that I know that x equals 1, I can plug that back into the original, or the x's. F of x is the exact same thing as a y. It's just function notation. If it's weirding you out, just turn it back to a y. Y and f of x are the exact same thing. So it's y equals negative 3. I'm going to plug in my x value, plus 6, plug in x, minus 5. You can type this entire thing into a calculator, parentheses and all. If you're doing it by hand, make sure you follow the order of operations, which is PEMDAS. Do not multiply first. You have to do the exponent first. That's a common mistake. 1 squared is 1. Then you multiply by negative 3. So I have negative 3. 6 times 1 is 6. And now I will add and subtract from left to right. Negative 3 plus 6 is 3. And 3 minus 5 is negative 2. Y equals negative 2. The vertex is 1, negative 2. Review in 6-6. You can also do this problem in a calculator. You could go to the y equals button on the top left, type in negative 3x squared plus 6x minus 5, hit graph, and it'll give you a picture of this. And you can look at it, and the vertex should be at 1, negative 2. If your picture doesn't have the vertex at 1, negative 2, you know you have the wrong answer. And it walks through how you can use the second trace buttons to find the minimum or maximum that way. I like to do it by hand. Double check in a calculator, make sure your answers match. Last question, same section. Harry owns a lemonade stand. His profit in dollars is given by this function. So his profit, P, is profit. So to figure out how much money he makes, we can use this formula. And X is how many lemonades he sells. Question is, find the maximum. So make sure you read the directions here. A maximum is a vertex. Remember, the definition of a vertex is it's the minimum or max. So if you ever see a word like max, min, what's the most? What's the least? What's the highest? Words like that mean find the vertex. So you're not factoring, it's not quadratic formula. We have to find the vertex using the vertex formula. So one more time. Here A is negative 1, B is positive 16. So I'm going to plug those in. Negative b divided by 2a. Negative 16 divided by negative 2 equals positive 8. With word problems, make sure you don't get negative answers. That would be a clue to stop and think that you did something wrong, because you can't sell negative lemonades. That wouldn't make any sense. So here I have x equals 8. Now do not choose that as your answer. The question did not ask how many lemonades. It says find the maximum profit. We need to solve and find profit, P. So don't forget to do the second step and plug 8 back into the original for the x's. So profit equals negative. Don't forget to copy down that negative sign. It's negative. Then plug in x and square it. This is one of the most missed questions on my final every year, and it's because of that negative sign in front. You can type this entire thing into a calculator, but the most common mistake is this sign gets lost. When you do the order of operations, you have to do the exponent first. 8 squared is 64. Then you multiply by the negative. So you've got to have a negative 64 there. Plus, when you multiply 16 and 8, you get 128 plus 50. And then if you add all of those together, you should get 114. So the answer you would select is that the profit, the maximum amount of money Harry can make, is $114. So if they ask for profit, make sure you choose profit, not lemonades. This one. Thank you very much. Good luck on your final exam.